Coming up, an otherworldly story collection.
A royal imposter vexes Henry VII.
Plus our distraction of the week. I'm Mel.
I'm Dave. This is the Library of Lost Time.
I was just about to start making notes on a different book for today's podcast when I learned that Marie-Helene Bertolino released a short story collection this week.
I was there when the shift happened.
Right? I am not exaggerating when I say I gasped.
Yeah.
I was so excited. That's how much I love her writing. For people who've been with us for a while, her name might be familiar. Her book, 2 a.m. at the Cat's Pajamas, is one of my favorite books to recommend at Christmas time. It's set in Philadelphia, and all of the action takes place on one magical night, Christmas Eve. The story's heroine is a mouthy fifth grader named Madeline. Her heart's desire is to perform at the legendary nightclub, the Cat's Pajamas. I recommended that one in our Pennsylvania podcast.
Yeah, and you light up every time you talk about it.
In our recent episode about outer space, I recommended the novel Beautyland. This one is magical sci-fi set in the 1980s. It's about a girl convinced she's an alien. And honestly, haven't we all felt like aliens in our lives at some time or another?
Yes, we have.
That's one of the things I love about this author's writing. Her characters wrestle with their feelings of being outsiders, weirdos who don't really fit in with the normies all around them. Marie-Helene Bertolino writes beautiful lyrical sentences, and the words she puts in her heroines' mouths are laugh-out-loud funny and poignant, often at the same time. She also writes stories set in a version of our world that's sprinkled with a bit of absurdity and fairy dust. So they're very grounded in reality, and then kind of banana pants things happen.
Okay.
But you go along with it.
Yeah.
Because it feels right. Which brings me to her new story collection, Exit Zero. I've read half of the 12 stories so far, and they are delightfully offbeat. The first is kind of a series of observations of ordinary people doing ordinary things, and they eventually intertwine and call back to each other. They're like tiny little prose poem paragraphs.
Okay.
That then, at the end, you find out are linked. Another one centers on a somewhat jaded event planner who inherits a unicorn from her estranged, now deceased father. In another, a woman's exes literally rain from the sky, forcing her to confront who they were and who they are now.
That's what it felt like when Facebook came out. Suddenly all of the people from your past came raining down in their current form.
Ricocheting around you.
Yeah.
That story includes the sentence, "Sometimes I feel like God's favorite sitcom."
Yeah.
See? Funny, poignant, could laugh, could cry.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories so far is called Can Only Houses Be Haunted? It's a ghost story about a married couple who spend an idyllic, sunshiny weekend in the country with friends. When they return to their kind of grungy apartment, they realize they're being haunted by peaches they bought from a roadside market. It's spooky, for sure, but it's also exploring how deeply a couple can know each other and how that can be wonderful and terrible at the same time.
Okay.
I'm going to read you the scene just before they confront the ghost in their kitchen. The husband's name is Vig. Vig sleeves the crowbar he keeps on his side of the bed, and I take hold of the bat I keep on mine. Armed, we creep down the hallway and stall in fear when we reach the kitchen. Whatever is behind the door overturns a drawer of silverware. Vig straightens, his mouth in a serious line, giving himself a pep talk in the voice of his 6th grade baseball coach, no doubt. The one who gave him the chance to bat during the only game his mother attended. I know every inflection of that story better than I know certain friends. These short stories address the stuff we all deal with: heartbreak, grief, loneliness, awkwardness. And they're quirky, but they're not necessarily whimsical, even though there is a unicorn tied up in the backyard.
Right.
They addressed dark themes, but somehow made me think of candy colors, which is kind of like all imbued in that unicorn in the backyard.
Right.
And they're set in somewhat mundane locales: New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. but they have a strong sense of place. And the strong sense of place they're giving off is the world of the absurd.
Oh,
But it's also a world of tenderness. I'm finding the stories very readable and entertaining, and also at the same time a little inscrutable. But I like it.
Yeah, we spent a good 10 minutes maybe on a walk unpacking one of the stories you had read and what it might mean or why it felt the way it did.
And it was talking through it with you that made me get a better grip on what that story was about.
Yeah.
Is the unicorn a metaphor? Is it just a unicorn? We talked about it.
I don't think a unicorn is ever just a unicorn.
Anyway, by now you can probably tell if this is for you or not. But I will say, if you hand yourself over to Marie-Helene Bertino's imagination, you will be rewarded. This book is Exit Zero, and it's out now.
Jo Harkin released her first novel back in 2022. That was called Tell Me an Ending. It's a speculative sci-fi novel that centers on a company that erases traumatic memories.
Handy.
Yeah. And the book follows 4 people who each get an email. Do you want your traumatic memory restored?
Restored?
Yeah. It's twisty and thoughtful, and it's a little unsettling. It's got some Severance vibes if you're into that. That book got a great review from the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times called it one of the best science fiction books of 2022. Which, first book.
Not bad.
Yeah. So now Jo Harkin is back with her second book. And this one is a hard left turn into historical fiction.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. This time she takes a little footnote of history, the story of Lambert Simnel, a boy who was basically used as a pawn in a plot to overthrow Henry VII. And she turns it into a novel that is rich and funny and poignant and surprisingly contemporary in both its emotional depth and its themes. So imagine this, right? You're a kid, you're a boy, you're just living your normal peasant life. You're worried about goats or grain or barley or whatever. And then suddenly a stranger shows up and he tells you that you are not who you thought you were. You are actually someone else, someone important. Someone with a claim to the throne of England.
Come on.
Yep. And that's what happens to our main character, John Collin. He is swept up into an elaborate conspiracy and forced to play the part of Lambert Simnel during the chaotic years right after the War of the Roses. There is danger, there are schemes, there are questions of loyalty, but it's really a human story. Through this boy, we see the experience of being educated as a noble, learning how to ride and hawk, and navigating treacherous courts, but also sort of constantly wrestling with the question, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Am I a peasant boy pretending to be an heir or an heir who was raised as a peasant? The book just came out this week. The early reviews have been glowing. One reviewer called it Demon Copperhead meets Wolf Hall.
I was going to say, it sounds like a good read-along with Wolf Hall.
Yeah. If you're looking for a historical fiction that's smart and funny and human, something that shines a light on a little corner of history, you're probably going to enjoy this. It's The Pretender by Jo Harkin.
Destruction of the Week.
I don't play video games, but I think even people who don't play video games have at least heard of Minecraft.
Yeah, it's definitely entered the zeitgeist.
Yes. I recently learned something very cool about Minecraft that made me feel a little better about the world. This is not a new story, but it's new to me, and it made me feel nice, so now I'm going to tell all of you about it.
Okay.
But first, let's cover some basics. Minecraft is the best-selling video game of all time. Do you want to guess how many people play it every month?
Oh, tens of millions?
170 million
Wow.
monthly. And more than 300 million copies have been sold. So what is this thing? It's like digital Legos,
Yeah.
but with potions, armor, and enchanted weapons.
Yeah.
It's called a sandbox game, which I had to get you to explain to me. Basically, that's the term for a game where you can wander through a digital landscape, exploring and building as you go.
Yeah, the hallmark of a sandbox game is that you've got an enormous amount of freedom to do whatever you want to do.
Play in the sandbox.
Yes.
Minecraft has forests, mountains, caves, oceans, and cities to explore. You can gather materials like wood and stone to create your own structures. And if you play the game in survival mode, you have to manage your health and resources while facing dangers like environmental hazards and monsters.
Yes. Monsters come to get you, and you have to build walls and moats and castles and maybe weapons and all kinds of things like that.
But mostly, it's about using your imagination and creativity to have fun in this imaginary world.
There are some famous sort of real-world recreations in Minecraft. So people will recreate the Eiffel Tower in Minecraft, or their favorite building, their favorite school, what have you.
I'm glad you mentioned that because it's a good segue to what I'm about to tell everyone. Inside the world of Minecraft is a virtual library called the Uncensored Library. This place is stocked with hundreds of books filled with articles by journalists from countries where access to information is limited or banned. The library was created and is updated by a nonprofit organization called Reporters Without Borders. They built it inside Minecraft because the game is available in every country. So players in Russia, Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Egypt, Brazil, and other countries with censorship can access articles in their original languages and in English while they're playing the game.
Oh, that's cool.
The library was designed by a company called Blockworks. A team of 24 people from 16 countries collaborated to build it. And visually, the architecture is neoclassical. It's based loosely on the British Museum and the New York Public Library. So when you come across it in the world of Minecraft, it's this majestic edifice made from white marble. There are domes and columns and arches. It sits in the middle of an island, surrounded by gardens, and at the head of a promenade leading to the front door, there's an enormous fist raised in the air clutching a pencil. The designers said they chose this style of architecture because it represents power and authority, and they wanted to turn those things on their heads. Love a little rebellious architecture.
Yeah.
Inside the library, players can navigate through 12 wings. Each one represents a different country. Censored articles are turned into uncensored books. So it's a safe space for journalists to share their writing and for readers to find it. Now, you might be thinking, well, now that countries know about this uncensored library, are they going to ban Minecraft?
Right.
The site also includes instructions on how to republish the library to other servers. So even if a country blocks it, the books won't be inaccessible for very long. It's kind of taken on a life of its own and is going to continue to exist, even if someone tries to squeeze it out of existence.
Yeah, so it's important to think that there are basically multiple Minecraft worlds. I don't know how many, I would guess hundreds of thousands. And you can copy from one world to another.
So the library stays alive.
Yeah. So I can have a copy of the library, and so can you.
It's nice.
Yeah.
The other thing that's pretty cool is that inside the library, there are digital shrines to murdered journalists, including Miroslava Breach and Javier Valdez from Mexico, and Jamal Khashoggi. He's the Washington Post columnist who was murdered at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018.
Yeah.
There are photos online, which I will link to in the show notes, of what it looks like inside the Uncensored Library. It's really sweet, which is kind of a weird thing to say about a very Lego-esque image.
Sure.
But it's almost like UN-like. There's a rotunda with all of the international flags around it. And then it has this kind of, for me, very 1980s feel to it because you open up the book and it's this kind of bitty rendered text of articles from around the world.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah, it feels very what we thought the future was going to look like in the 1980s.
Yeah.
In 2022, the Uncensored Library won a Peabody Award. Those are the most prestigious media awards in the industry. The judges described the library as a, quote, monument to press freedom and an innovative backdoor for access to censored content. And I want to read the rest of what they had to say because it's really, really nice. Perhaps the most impressive aspect of the library is the gorgeous artistry and architecture of the spaces. such as the section on Russia, housing a giant octopus to point to the country's role in spreading misinformation around the world. It's this attention to detail that speaks most to Minecraft's younger audience, and the library has become a teaching tool in K-12 schools and universities around the world. For turning one of the largest digital platforms for youth into a global movement to fight censorship, the Uncensored Library wins a Peabody Award.
That's so nice.
Visit strongsenseofplace.com/library for more on the books we talked about today and the remarkable library hidden inside a video game.
Thanks for joining us in the Library of Lost Time. Remember to visit your local library, your independent bookstore, or your local Minecraft server to lose some time yourself.
Stay curious. We'll talk to you soon.